Hello everybody, it is me, Roscowhitey, here today, and I am bringing you the first episode of the rebooted channel thing. I've not really mentioned much about it at all, but I'm going to be doing a lot more on this channel. It'll be Robot Wars videos. I've got a lot of ideas for series planned, but we'll go into that in more detail later on, because today I'm bringing you the first episode of one of the new series, my Robot Wars Top 10 lists. I've got quite a few ideas for this, but if you want to give other ideas for future episodes of this, feel free to leave them down below. And these are completely unscripted. What I have is my list of my 10 of whatever the topic is, and that's it. I don't really have a script or anything, so I'll be just saying stuff that comes into my head, what I like or in some cases dislike about robots or episodes or whatever the topic is. That's about it for what I have to discuss. Obviously I've got 10. I also have a few honourable mentions in there as well, which won't be as long as the robots that are in the actual list. It'll just be a sort of shorter overview of the robots and why I like them, but they're not made the top 10 or bottom 10 in some cases. I think that's about it, so let's get this top 10 started. So as you can tell by the title, this first episode is my top 10 favourite robots. Absolutely any robot can qualify for this. A 2016 robot, an American robot, a German robot, a robot that's appeared in every single series, absolutely anything. And this is only my opinion. This is not based on, most wins, most prowess or whatever. This is just my personal opinion, and I'll be explaining why I like the robots and why they're in my top 10. So, in at number 10, we have Agent Orange, which is a robot that only appeared in Series 3. And we only got to around the second round, I think it was. It was in Heat C. It lost to Blades, I believe. Yeah, it lost to Blade. And I really, really liked this robot. It looked amazing. When I first saw it, before it was fighting, it looked really, really impressive. It looked like it did some serious damage. It had a really nice pickaxe that came over the top. A nice set of crushing jaws on the front. In its first match, it was against Max Damage, and Max Damage just didn't move, so I mean, it didn't really have much to do. But in the second match, obviously, as I said, it lost to Blade, but it was still pretty impressive. It's mainly on this list, on this top 10, because it looked really, really impressive. But we didn't see much of it. It was only in Series 3, and I think the team did come back later on. I can't remember which robot with exactly, but they didn't come back with Agent Orange, so that's why it's so low on the list.
1. Activate.
Immediately Agent Orange on the attack. Max damage, slow to get away. Very slow to get away. Hasn't got away. Has broken down, I think. There's the garden fork pickaxe hanging on. Have you ever seen a garden fork like that? In your worst nightmare. And it's a nightmare at the moment for Max damage. And Charlotte looks embarrassed. Poor old Darren trying to drive Max damage into life. But it's Agent Orange doing all the pushing and shunting. You're going towards the pit, Max damage. Max damage? You sure? Name like that. Minimum fuss. You were out.
In at number 9, we actually have 3 robots, but they're all the same team, so that counts. It is the GBH team from Series 2, 3 and 6. In Series 2, they had this sort of kind of rounded robot with a bucket scoop at the front. It was just called GBH. It was one of the, it was in one Heat J. It was one of the better robots in Series 2, definitely. It could have got quite far. It did get quite far, obviously. I got to the trials section of the semi-finals, which was the pinball, went out there. But it definitely would have done something good in the arena. It was a very, very good weapon. And I just thought it was quite far ahead of its time, and it was quite effective at what it did. In Series 3, they came back with a very impressive robot called Facet. It was completely blue, wedge shaped with a massive, massive flipper on the front, and it could reach apparently 48 miles an hour. It was never seen, but apparently it could reach 48 miles an hour. It got a really unfortunate draw though. It was drawn in the heat with Firestorm, Dietor, Steel Avenger. And that's one bad thing about Series 3, that some heats were really stacked, such as that heat, and then other heats, sort of like Heat L, Heat D, Heat P, were just awful. But that's a topic for another day. That's another series I'll be doing. That's a topic for another day. So they had GBH and then Facet in Series 3, and Series 6 they came out of GBH 2, which was based on a race car. It had a sort of front edge flipper on the front, and sort of smaller kind of... If you know Mute, it had the kind of similar back flipper to Mute on the back. So it came back for that in Series 6. And I just really think all 3 robots that they made were really unique. They all had some personality to them. They weren't just like silver box, you know, box with a spike. They all were effective at what they did, were impressive in their matches, and looked really smart. That's why, and the team were really cool as well. So that's why they're number 9 on my list.
Boggle-eyed, they are no more. GBH is turned over. The alien that started well. GBH has righted in flamboyant style. This is a terrific melee so far. ICU better out of these 4 so far. Very, very close. ICU there onto the arena side wall. Depressing the bit release button. Almost inadvertently they were shoved onto it. ICU's axe comes out. Honourable is flipped over. Can they survive? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Next, there you can see the back of Steve Merrill, designer, builder, driver of Honourable. He runs a video company. ICU comes back in with its own axe going down. There's the alien right at the heart of it as well with its own weaponry. Look at that! Shremek of GBH2. I'll be back at CPZ for the final rights. The alien has a grip on Chromalot. GBH2 with an enormous shove racing car effect, and it has been fast, it has been nippy. Could take on Le Mans there. You can see Growler at the bottom of your picture. The house robots coming in, I think. Chromalot's overturning the CPZ. Growler's going to dump ICU in the pits.
In at number 8, we have Neat/Neater Machine. This robot is one of the coolest looking robots I think I've ever seen. Unfortunately, we only saw it once in the UK wars, and that was in Series 7. I forget what heat it was in, but it went out in the first round. I think it was in Spawn Against heat N, maybe. I think it was in that heat. Yeah, it went out in the first round, but it's just such a cool looking robot. I thought it had this sort of massive axe that came down. I'm quite a big fan of axe robots. You might get that when I go through this. Yeah, a massive axe that came down from the top, and the sort of lifter on the front, sort of trap robots, and batter them with the axe. They did appear sometimes in Dutch Robot Wars. And they did pretty well in there, I think. I haven't watched too much Dutch Robot Wars, I'm sorry. I actually really do need to start watching that. Watch another Robot Wars. But, yeah. It was just a really cool looking robot. It looked like it did a lot of damage. But unfortunately, it didn't really. I think I got quite an unlucky draw. I would have loved to see more of this if the series continued on into, well, I mean, it has now, but if it continued on to Series 8, which was in 2004, Series 9 in 2005, etc., etc. But yeah, Neater Machine, number 8.
De refbot even afgeteld en we gaan kijken wat Neater uit kan richten tegen Hart. Zo, dat is een flinke tik. Zie je dat daar bovenop? Dan Hart vooralsnog, die heeft al een aardige ram uitgedeeld. Hopsakee, hij ramt hem midden in zijn ruggengraat en de stoom knalt uit zijn reet. Kijk nou eens even. Het lijkt ook wel alsof het wapen van Hart het inmiddels ook al begeven heeft. Die hangt een beetje als een soort...
And now this is the section after every 3 robots I do 2 honourable mentions. So the first 2 honourable mentions are Dominator 2 and Draven. Dominator 2, as I've already mentioned, I loved axe robots. It was really effective what it did, and it was very impressive and looked really nice. And that's pretty much it why Dominator 2 is there. I just like the little robots in this list better than Dominator 2, that's why it's not made top 10. And Draven is an absolutely beautiful looking robot. We saw it in the, what was it called, Wildcard Warriors in Extreme, and it's obviously returned in the 2016 series. Not much has changed after, what, 15, 16 years, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful looking robot, I think. It's got that crushing jaw at the front, and it's totally sleek and black, and just the silver crushing jaw of the red eye. Stunning. But unfortunately, it hasn't won a fight ever. It's not a very good, well, it's a lovely looking robot. It's not a very good, impressive robot, if you know what I mean. It's not good when it's fighting. So that's why it's not in the top 10. And as I said, these honourable mentions are sort of shorter in explaining why they're there. In at number 7, we have a Series 2 robot who is in the same heat as GBH, and it goes by the name of Killdozer. Killdozer was a really, really cool looking robot, I felt. It was a sort of low wedge slash box rectangle shape, which was yellow, and it had this sort of scooped flipper at the front. Obviously I'll be putting pictures up of all these, so you'll know what it looks like, but yeah, Killdozer. It was only really appeared in Series 2, and I genuinely don't know what it was about it. I just really, really liked the robot and the design of the robot. It was unique, yet effective, and it only got to the arena stage, I think. But I think I ended up losing to Ivanhoe, but it was still a very, very good robot, and one of the most impressive robots I've seen in Series 2, because obviously, you know, Series 2, we were getting robots like Talos and Demon, Cruella, and stuff that still doesn't have moving weapons. You know, some of them robots are alright, but yeah, it just seemed a bit ahead of its time, and I don't know, I just really, really liked the robot.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
An axe ground down to a menacing point, and you wouldn't mess with Craig. He's a black belt in Taekwondo at 13 years of age. Good speed by Ivanhoe early on, good style there. Now the aggression. Ooh, that's a mistake though. They've gone on to that front raising ramp. They didn't want to do that. Here's a problem for Killdozer though, and he knows it. They couldn't do any more damage. They had to release Ivanhoe. Hopefully to drive Ivanhoe into the PPZ, the perimeter patrol zone. Then there'll be food for the house robots. Both of them very dangerously close to that PPZ and now in. And on the spikes. Here comes Shunt and also Dead Metal. To the right of your screen, there's Shunt at the top. Dead Metal with a circular saw.
In at number 6 is Wild Thing. Now, Wild Thing have been around since Series 2, but Wild Thing didn't actually come into play until Series 4. The team had Demon and Thing, or Thing 2, in 2 and 3, Series 2 and 3. So Wild Thing in Series 4 had this sort of lifting arm. It was a wedge shape with a lifting arm, which was good, it was effective, but it was kind of a bit boring to me. Series 5 and Extreme 1 were my personal favourite version of Wild Thing. It still had the sort of lifting arm, but it now acted as a Shremek, and had this nice spinning disc on the front of its wedge. And I just feel that this version of Wild Thing looked the best. It probably wasn't the best performing, Series 4, probably the best performing and most effective. But I feel that this version of Wild Thing looked its best, and yeah, that was just my favourite version of Wild Thing. Series 6, obviously, they came back into Heat E, seeded 9th, and they completely changed the design. It was a very weird design, and it had this sort of spinning disc at the front. I can't really explain it, I'll show you a picture up on the screen anyway. But it had this sort of spinning disc at the front, and it was very fortunate to get through its heat. It was, well, it wasn't fortunate, but 259 in its first battle was very impressive, and then reliability issues kicked in for that robot, and Wild Thing beat it in the semi-finals, and then won the Heat final, obviously, as well. So yeah, Wild Thing, if I was going to be specific, the Series 5 version of it, but all versions of Wild Thing were pretty cool to me.
Got that new spinning disc to work. You can just see the jut blades there onto the plasma nitride coated titanium shell. The axe down on the wheels. The wheels of Wild Thing are vulnerable. I thought they might be. But meanwhile, Wild Thing back on the attack. Oh, and there seems to have been some damage there on one of the wheels of Dominator 2. A bit of reverse gear, then turns away. Onto the arena sidewalk. Down comes the axe. The crowd won't like a decision one way or the other. A bit of smoke coming out there. We're into the last 10 seconds. Which robot has sustained the most damage? Which has been the more aggressive? Because I feel sure, and indeed it will now, go to a judge's decision between Wild Thing and Dominator 2.
In at number 5, we're getting to the top 5 now. It is Mousetrap. Now, Mousetrap is one of the most original and unique robots I've ever seen on the series. For one, it is got a very, very effective weapon, and for two, it is actually based on a real-life object, on a mousetrap. The weapon on it was a massive spring-loaded sort of axe, but it was shaped to look like a mousetrap, which was very, very effective. Not too much in Series 4. They didn't have a sort of blade on it. It was just sort of a bar that swung down. But they got to the semi-finals with that. Series 5 and Extreme, I think, was much more impressive. It had a nice guillotine blade edge to it. It would come down with some force. It could make massive, massive damage to their robots. But unfortunately, I don't think we ever saw the true potential of the robot. The reason this is one of my favourite robots, but the reason it is not as high is because the team came back with one of the worst robots I've ever seen from an experienced team, but we'll get to that video on a different day. So that's not about Mousetrap, that is about a robot which I do not want to even say the name of. It's black and blue. So yeah, Mousetrap number 5.
2, 1, activate.
Replacing the heat final against Stinger. S3, the hammerhead shark, as we called him earlier, with that vertically mounted spinning disc. Awesome, as it tries to grind into Mousetrap. And I think Jason Launchbury's tactics here to stay out of trouble, well, or try and snare S3, and they've done just that with the guillotine blade. And if that blade can cut off the radio aerial, then S3 would be immobilized. Who will give way first here? Can the blade of S3 sever the spring of the Mousetrap? They're into the CBZ, which means Killalot can also come into the equation. The spring is holding fast. Will the bar go? Well, which robot is immobilized? Whose weapon there? The Mousetrap has certainly been broken, but I wonder if the S3 blade has also been stopped from rotating. It has. Look at that. They are locked together in some ghastly dance of death on Robot Wars. Into the arena sidewall. The blade has been stopped by the Mousetrap, whose own weapon is no longer working. To and fro, shove and heave.
So for 3 more robots, it is now time for 2 more honourable mentions. And they are Transmaniac and Piranha. Transmaniac was never seen in the UK Wars. I've only ever seen one battle from it. However, that battle alone was enough to put it in as an honourable mention. It is one of the coolest looking robots I've ever seen, and the weapon is pretty cool as well. Like, I'm not going to lie, I saw it from Rossetti's Wars in, I can't remember what series it was, one of the series where it lost to Atomic. It must have been Heat P of Series 2, I think it was, where it lost to Atomic, and then I was really impressed with the replica, so I went and watched a video of Transmaniac, and it looked exactly like it, and I just really liked the design of it. That's pretty much the reason it's there. Second of all, Piranha. Again, very similar to Transmaniac. I really like the design, that's why it's there. Complete in Heat D of the New Blood, and it just really was a unique looking and impressive robot to me. So yeah, Transmaniac and Piranha, 2 more honourable mentions. So, in at number 4, we have Panic Attack. Winners of Series 2. Panic Attack, they've been around for so long. Completed from Series 2 through to Series 7. Oh, Series 7 is a new team, but well, kind of. But it was just such an impressive robot. I would say after Chaos 2, Hypnodisc and Razor, Panic Attack is probably the most recognisable robot from the series, maybe apart from Firestorm. Panic Attack was just such a unique robot and effective at what it did, that it just deserved its place on this list. And it was always a good robot to watch fighting. I never got bored watching Panic Attack that I would with some other robots. I won't go into that either. But some other famous robots that people really liked, that I just got bored watching. But we'll get to that in a different video as well. So yeah, Panic Attack number 4, Owen, Kim Davies. What a driver he was. He was a brilliant driver. One of my favourite times of him driving was in the Annihilator, the Mayhem, to qualify for the Annihilator on Extreme 1. I can't remember what show it was. It was against Shere Khan and Dietor. Shere Khan was already out of it, and I just punched my mic, I'm sorry. Shere Khan was already out of it, but Dietor was flipped onto its springs, and Panic Attack picked up by its springs, drove it all the way to the pit and dumped it in, and that was some of the best driving I might have ever seen in Robot Wars. So yeah, number 4 is Panic Attack.
Which has left the picture of Panic Attack rather cooked. Shere Khan up on the edge of Panic Attack and flipped up and over when it's got the weaponry, but it does not have the control, nor a Sreemec, and they're in major trouble here now, Shere Khan. Over they go. That was a good drive by Panic Attack. It actually uses those side skirts as an offensive weapon. Well, also, Now on Dietor, that's the counting out of Shere Khan. I'm so disappointed because the weaponry looks devilish. And over go Dietor. Well, they've got the spring-loaded bucket scoopers. Finally, Shere Khan are red-carded. They're out. They've got the bucket scoop there at Dietor. So potentially they can self-right, but I don't think they're going to here. The pit descends. Dietor crashes down, helped out a little bit by panic attack. Or have they been? Because Ken Davis has them on the forklift, and they're now being dredged and dragged Dietor towards doom and gloom. And therein lies oblivion. Very controlled performance by panic attack. They're through to the Annihilator later in the series.
Right, so the top 3, getting a bronze medal on my top 10 favourite robots. It is Wheelie Big Cheese. Now, Wheelie Big Cheese, maybe apart from Gravity, the most powerful flipper we've ever seen in Robot Wars. However, considering this robot came 2 or 3 years before Gravity, I'll be willing to give it that title of the most powerful robot, powerful flipper we've ever seen in Robot Wars. It flipped Axaw in Series 5 from the centre of the arena out of the arena. Now that is some power, I can tell you. That is some massive, massive power. And not only that, not only was it a good robot, and the fights were always exciting to watch, well, apart from the Series 4 heat, but we won't go there. It was very unique as well. You know, we'd never seen a full-bodied flipper before, I don't think anyway. When I previewed in Series 4, we'd never seen a robot like that. Now we see them like Sint Agro, and well, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but it was such a unique design and impressive design as well, because it worked very well until it got drawn against Tornado in the semi-finals of Series 4. But it was a good robot. That's just, I can't say anything else about it. It was a really good and impressive robot.
Good battle here. Wheelie Big Cheese is the quicker machine. Both 99 kilos, both from Langport in Somerset. Axel flipped! Oh, goodness me, by Wheelie Big Cheese! That has to be a Robot Wars record flip! Look at the distance achieved here! That is immense! Out of the arena, out of the Robot Wars galaxy!
Cease.
So, number 2, silver medal. We have got X-Terminator. Now, one of the most coolest looking robots I've ever seen, and unique as well. It debuted in Series 3 when it had a kind of red design, and it was a good axe, but was unfortunately drawn in the same heat as Panic Attack, the reigning champions at that time. So it got to the heat final and gave Panic Attack a really good match, actually, considering it's a newcomer against the reigning champions, but it did unfortunately end up losing. It then returned in Series 4 with an interchangeable axe, which I don't think was very powerful at all, and a sort of flipper lifter at the front. And ended up winning its heat, beating Behemoth in the heat final, surprisingly. And then getting through to the semi-finals and losing to Wildling. Series 5, I was very disappointed with it, and I ended up losing to Corkscrew, which is Scottish, so I should probably like it. It's probably one of the better Scottish robots, but it's a bit boring, you know. It's a full body spinner. They're always quite boring, full body spinners to me, but that's just my opinion. So I ended up losing there, and it lost in the heat final of Series 6 to Firestorm, although the Series 6 version was really, really, really good looking, and it was a massive step in the right direction. It wasn't so boxy, it was more wedge shaped and a lot more sleek and a lot more impressive looking. And then they returned in Series 7, and what can I say about the Series 7 version of X-Terminator that hasn't already been said? Oh my gosh, I would say one of the most impressive spinners we'd ever seen in the first 7 series, in the first original series of Robot Wars. It was unbelievable. It was the first competitor robot, I believe, with a vertical disc. Well, with a disc in general. The first competitor, not including Matilda, to toss another robot out of the arena. It had done that to Tsunami. And did it do it to Killer Carrot? I think it did do it to Killer Carrot as well. It was just so impressive. However, like I said with Facet, this is... Oh, GBH and Facet, this is 5 different robots. So my favourite one, I do have to say, even though it wasn't very good, was the Series 5 version. I really don't know why. I feel like it might be because it's the most I've seen of it, because the most series I saw of Robot Wars when I was growing up, when I really, really got into the series. Like, I'd watched Series 2 and 3 and 4 a bit. Not much Series 4, I'd watched Series 3 and 2 a bit. But I really got into Robot Wars in Extreme in Series 5. And Exterminator might have been one of the first robots I ever saw. Yeah, I think it was. I think the first episode I ever saw was Show 6 of Extreme, and that's when Exterminator played in the Mayhem against Cataclysmic Varier Bot and the Panzer robot, Panzer Wraith or something. The Panzer from Series 3, Return in Extreme, Panzer Wraith I think it was called. So I think that was the first time I ever saw Exterminator. And I just thought that the box design, although it wasn't very effective, wasn't as effective as Series 5, Series 6 and Series 7 versions, just looked smart. It just, I don't know. I like Exterminator. That's we're just gonna leave it at that. I really, really like Exterminator.
3, 2, 1. Activate.
Exterminator has experience in battle, though Colin Scott, the driver of Immortalis, had previously entered Robot Wars with Death Warmed Up and Piece de Resistance. His Immortalis creation this time, though, under pressure from Exterminator, but hanging on, and Exterminator almost turned over there. And is sluggish here at the start of this second round battle until that moment when the blade simply ripped into Killer Carrot, maybe missing a couple of defensive plates according to Rob, and suffering as a consequence. The power there of Exterminator's spinning disc. You remember from previous wars, it had a huge axe, but it was not as effective as that spinning disc. And again on the onslaught, the whole fight has changed. In the past, it has taken very good machines to stop Exterminator, like Firestorm 4 and Wild Thing and Panic Attack and Pussycat way, way back in the history of Robot Wars. But this, to me, is a much better machine as it rips into Killer Carrot 2 once again. Looks big and bulky and strong, and you can clearly see it has immense destructive power. Killer Carrot 2 is finished here. Exterminator causing more damage, slicing through. We said right at the start of the program that Killer Carrot 2 had vulnerable wheels, pitiful armament. Oh dear. Chasing Killer Carrot, trying to get in behind Secure. Maybe not the best move. Pressing, are they going to press the pit release? They are. Are they yet confident then they can push Exterminator down into that pit? Maybe it's the only tactic left to them. Doesn't matter, they're out. The final blow. Significant.
So, number 1. But first we've got two honourable mentions. Sorry guys. So, 2 honourable mentions, the final 2 are Anarchy and Tracks. Anarchy because after watching 101 for 3 series, which was a good robot, but was getting past it by Series 4, let alone Series 5, got trashed by Fluffy in Series 5. For Mike Franklin to come back in Series 6 with a robot that complex, considering they'd had 101 before, was amazing. It is, without a doubt, the best walking robot we've ever had on Robot Wars. With the scoop at the back and the axe that can come down, flipper at the front, it was such a good walking robot. And I tell you what, if it had half the other seeds in its group, apart from Tornado, it probably would have won the heat. Wild Thing it would have beat, I feel. Stinger probably would have beat. Spawn Again, oh god, it would have beaten Spawn Again. Spawn Again, don't know how that got through its heat, but we'll get to that in another video. I keep mentioning other heats, but Anarchy was just a very impressive robot, and that's why it gets an honourable mention. And the final honourable mention is Trax, which appeared in Heat I of Series 7, losing to Storm 2 in the semi-final, Heat semi-final. I just think Trax is a really smart-looking robot. It had a sort of front-hinged flipper bar, and it had Trax, as the name suggests, and I just think it looked really smart. It reminded me a bit of my number 1 robot, which I won't say yet, but it reminded me a little bit of that, and I don't know why, because it don't look similar at all. But it just reminded me a bit. of that robot, and I guess that might be why I like it, or it's just a cool looking design. I don't know, but Drax is an honourable mention. And finally, we get to number 1, which is Behemoth. Behemoth, one of the coolest and most unique robots we've ever seen, I feel, it's ever been in Robot Wars. It's based on a construction vehicle, so it's got the yellow and black stripes, which are a really cool design. It's got a massive bulldozer at the front, and it always gave its best, it always gave a good account of itself in its fight. One thing I disliked about Behemoth was how unreliable it was. It could have been champion a few series. I genuinely feel that if it wasn't so unreliable. I also feel like it almost always got a really, really unlucky draw. Maybe not, actually. Series 6 it got an unlucky draw, maybe that's about it. So Series 2, it won Heat D after Inquisitor knocked out Razor. Well, Razor knocked out itself and Inquisitor went through. Series 3 ended up losing a Pitbull in the Heat final from an Arena Spike. That's one thing about Behemoth. I always feel it was really unlucky as well. It did lose to an Arena Spike in Series 3. Series 4, it lost fair and square to X-Terminator in the Heat final. To the judge's decision, but it still lost. Series 5, they went out in the second round to Crustacean. They were in the same heat as Wheelie Big Cheese, and I would have loved to see both of them fight. That would have been an absolutely brilliant, brilliant fight. But Crustacean knocked out in the second round, so we never got to see that. Series 6, it went out in the second round again, the bigger brother in Heat L, which was the second seed at that time. It gave a really good account of itself in that battle, to be fair. It was really, really impressive in that battle. And in Series 7, it was seeded 10th, came back, lost in the second round again. Mute flipped itself over, self-righted, on top of Behemoth and stuck it into forward gear. And then, finally, in the 2016 series, they got a little bit of, not decent luck, but they weren't unlucky this time. They returned, got through their first battle, knocking out Bonk, which was, I guess, retribution for Mute knocking out Behemoth. It was the same team, and the General, and then played in head-to-heads against Nuts, Terhorts and Carbide, and then lost finally in the Heat final to Carbide again. However, I just feel that Behemoth is such a cool looking and unique robot, and the team were really nice as well. They always seemed very genuine on the TV show. I just feel it's such a unique robot, no one's sort of done a robot similar to it before, that it deserved the #1 spot on my list. I always just really enjoyed watching it fight as well. It was, I don't know, it was just a beautiful looking robot, and a very impressive robot. And I hope they return for 2017 series, if it is one.
2, 1.
Bigger brother. Only Razor stopped them last time. Behemoth getting the front bucket scoop though. Oh, into action very early on, and Bigger brother's in trouble in the CPZ. Oh, brilliant self-righting. Magnificent stuff from Ian Watts driving. What a quick flip Bigger brother has. Very deft, nippy across the arena, spinning, a zero-turning circle. Over it goes again. Rights itself 96 kilos in weight, Behemoth 4 kilos heavier.
2, 1.
Behemoth strong, heavy, already slamming into Tartarus, surely here just for show. The secret agent story, tut tut. In other words, you see UFO in underneath, but they can't flip. They've come into the war zone UFO without a weapon. Behemoth looking on with Anthony Pritchard and Kane Aston. The danger for Crustacean is if it gets pushed out of the arena, but it's away, and Brian Catler, and out they go. Part dragon, part frog, but it didn't give us a dragonfly nor a frog hop, but Crustacean did. They've hopped out. Now for me, that is a shot because it means UFO will go through with Behemoth. Isn't really working. Nothing on Tartarus work, by the way. Hardly anything. UFO, I'll tell you what, could go on here. and cause a surprise as this heat unfolds. They don't want to get caught side on by a machine like Behemoth. Cease's Core both go through, of course.
So, that's my top 10 favourite robots, guys. I hope you enjoyed. How long have we been going? 24 minutes, Jesus. So yeah, that's my top 10 favourite robots. I hope you're enjoying the new sort of rebooted videos and things that I'm doing here. And next time I've done my top 10 favourite robots, so next time, guess what we're doing? Top 10 least favourite robots. That's going to be brilliant fun. So, yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and leave down below what you thought of the new sort of series thing. What other series should I do? I've got a few ideas. I'm going to be doing some sort of let's builds of robots. Also going to be doing some rant series on robots, but I don't really know what else to do. So if you've got any ideas, leave that down below. Also leave ideas for more top 10s to come in the future. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one. Ta-ra.